Folks, it's Halloween, a spooky time of year, and that's a time to watch scary movies. Now, I myself am not actually a scary movie guy. A lot of friends of mine have a nickname for me, and it's like, Hoss, you jumpy bitch. I'm really jumpy, and I get scared, and I throw my popcorn everywhere. Girls in the past have really liked to watch the scary movies with me because it makes them feel more masculine, I guess. I don't know. I scream. But I have watched plenty of horror movies. I grew up in the 90s, and that's what Halloween is about. Halloween is about sitting down watching your scary movies. And right now, Halloween is about figuring out who is the greatest horror icon of them all. I took 64 horror movie icons, and one from a video game actually, and other ones are from other mediums, but ultimately they're all film related horror icons. We're talking Jason, we're talking Freddy, we're talking Michael Myers, we're talking Chucky, we're talking the tire from Rubber, but also the classics, right? Why not have Dracula in there, and Frankenstein, and the Wolfman, and the Phantom of the Opera? Dracula isn't just Bela Lugosi. Like, Dracula also isn't just Adam Sandler from Hotel Transylvania. He's Dracula from Blade Trinity. He's Dracula Nicolas Cage. He's Dracula Gary Oldman. He's Dracula 3000. Like, anyway, we'll get into that. But so many of these guys have been played by more than one actor and have existed in more than one medium, and it's just who is the ultimate horror icon. So as I said, I started with 64. I broke them into groups of 16. I have 16 iconic slashers. I have 16 that fell more into the classic range. Another 16 that kind of went into the B movie range. And then another 16 that just kind of fell wherever. And I took each of those lists and I randomized them up and had one from each list competing against each other to see who is, once again, the biggest horror icon. I had fans of my channel vote to see who the winner was. And let's start right off the bat. Thank you very much if you did take part in the polls. And if you want to continue doing that, I'm not going to be slowing these polls down anytime soon. Right off the bat, we had Michael Myers going up against Jack Torrance from The Shining, taking on The Blob and The Critters. Now, The Critters obviously didn't stand a chance. The Blob, great movie from the 50s, remade, I believe, in the 80s. Iconic. No, people know who it is. They know what you're talking about. Jack Torrance, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
Here's Johnny.
Also iconic, but Michael Myers, The Shape. He originated the slasher. John Carpenter was right there. It's Michael Myers. So many people in the comments right here on this one alone were like, Michael Myers is going all the way. Michael Myers is a contender to win it. As far as slashers with recency, like, he has had a trilogy most recently. He's had movies more recently than anybody else. So, I mean, Michael Myers is an absolute contender. He took 84% of this vote. And another one that fell into that was Pinhead versus Norman Bates, taking on the Valak from The Nun and the Tooth Fairy from Darkness Falls. Now, I mean, some of these obviously had no chance in hell of winning. Honestly, I had Pinhead from Hellraiser. Locked in to win. Why not? Guaranteed winner, I would have thought. No. Norman Bates went 50% of that vote. From Psycho, everybody knows. Then I forgot kind of about the Bates Motel TV series that's been on recently. So, obviously that plays a huge role. Pinhead from Hellraiser took 43%. So, I mean, Norman Bates right away surprised me. Unlike the Spider-Man poll that I held last month, like, this is going unpredictably for me. So that's awesome and exciting. The Invisible Man from the classic movies, or Hollow Man, like, I guess these characters aren't just that character. Like, when I say the Wolfman, I guess that is kind of for every werewolf that came afterwards, just as far as horror icons, right? So the Invisible Man, Chucky from Child's Play, Critters from The Critters, and Samara from The Ring. Samara did better than I thought, 19%. Invisible Man only did 12%, Critters barely registered, and Chucky took 68%. No surprise there. Then we had the Gremlins versus Hannibal Lecter. Is Hannibal Lecter a horror character or a thriller? He's scary. He eats people. Hannibal Lecter's definitely in there. Taking on Damien from The Omen and the Kothoga from The Relic, if you've heard of that one. Gremlins did a respectable 19%. It's actually not that respectable. Hannibal Lecter took it with 77% and moves on. Up next, I had Death from Final Destination, kind of an unseen, but all-being force. That force was there, right? Taking on Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, going up against Reagan or Pazuzu from The Exorcist, a movie which I never finished because I'm a scaredy little bitch. Frankenstein's monster, or the creature. Once again, I kind of thought Leatherface, like the Freddys and the Jasons and the Leatherfaces and the Pinhead, set to win. Didn't really anticipate what was coming for the love of these universal monsters, but as people talk in the comments, it really makes sense. Like, they're classic for a reason. They're the original horror from novels, Mary Shelley. Even though he's not really the monster and people are the monster and the creature and stuff, like, he is iconic. When you think Halloween, when you think horror, Frankenstein is right up there. And the creature took it with 68%. Leatherface got 19 again. Same as Gremlins. Leatherface is iconic as Gremlins. I like Gremlins. Dun 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 dun. And then I think this must be one of the lowest ones. We had Frank Zito from Maniac taking 1%. 1%. Never seen Maniac, hadn't heard of it, saw him on the list. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. The Babadook took 8%. The Fly, Jeff Goldblum from The Fly, the Brundlefly, took 8%. And then the Yautja, or the Predator, took 83%. All these lists, when I was compiling a list of all the horror icons and horror people, the Predator is on those lists all the time. And people are saying Predator is more of an action thing, and it really is. But you could look at the first Predator, or even the second Predator. You could look at them at the filter of a horror movie. It just happens to be that Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dutch Schaefer wasn't really a scared little teenage girl as we usually have in the horror movies. Like, the Predator could very much be a horror movie if he wasn't going up against a team of Marines in the jungle, you know? Predator could be very well utilized, but no, these days it is more of an action sci-fi set piece. But I put him in there anyway because of what's going to happen in round 2. They're very predictable. So here we go with Freddy Krueger taking on the Tall Man from Phantasm and the Bride of Frankenstein, who did very poorly, and the Shark from Jaws. The Shark from Jaws got so much respect in the comments, like the original blockbuster. Once again, I don't know, Jaws is a horror really, but it kind of is. There's a force that is unstoppable, killing people. I'm saying kill a lot. I don't know how this video is going to do, but I actually don't care about that. But Freddy Krueger easily moved on 80% to 15% to Jaws. Another one, this one just fell with a bunch of duds kind of, and I had no idea how it was going to go. But Annabelle, the creepy ass doll from the Annabelle movies, I have not seen. I really like the Conjuring movies, the series with Ed and Lorraine Warren and like their movies, but then I didn't get into the Nun or the Annabelles and stuff like that. But like live dolls creep me out. A lot of action figures here. So that's a touchy subject. Going up against the Gill Man, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, and then the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers, which I've never seen, and Captain Spaulding from House of a Thousand Corpses. Mike Myers aside, I felt it weird to not get any Rob Zombie representation in here, so I added in Captain Spaulding. But Annabelle took it with 47%. The Gill Man went 26%. But Gill Man was getting a lot further. A lot of respect for him in the comments, but he just couldn't pull it off. When I first set this up, I wasn't quite thinking about the classics as strong as I should have. I got Pennywise the Clown. I specified either version, your Tim Curry or your Bill Skarsgård. Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Recency bias, people are loving it. Thinking Pennywise was going to go over on this one easy. Only got 13%. 2% for the Blair Witch and 1% for Grim Cuddy, so another really low one. But 84%, just blowing my socks off, was Dracula. And once again, I specified any version, so Dracula in there, just with a huge showing right in the start, and like so much respect in the comments. People talk about the original literature and like the history. Actually, nobody mentioned the history of Vlad the Impaler and whatnot, but like this, Dracula has really seeped into pop culture, and it shows. Then I had Sam from Trick or Treat, another movie I actually haven't seen, but I've been meaning to. The Graboids from Tremors, which I'll talk about one second. Pumpkinhead from Pumpkinhead, and Candyman from Candyman, which I always think Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, which I think is Candyman 3. But the guy's made of bees, and he's got a hook, and he's Tony Todd. I'm just gonna talk about Tremors for a second, because when do I get to talk about Tremors? Probably the best movie ever made. Maybe next to Back to the Future. And Back to the Future's structurally bad movie, but it's so good. But Tremors is one of those things, if I'm flipping through the television and I see Tremors at any point in the movie, I stop and I watch all of it. And to me, that means Tremors is probably the greatest movie of all time. There's so many movies I will just skip past. I've seen it. But Tremors, I watch it. If it's got 2 minutes left, I watch the rest of it. If it's got 2 hours left and it's at the beginning, I just sit, I stop what I'm doing, and I watch Tremors. Respect for Tremors. Candyman destroyed the Graboids. 2 more females. Not a lot of females on this list, you'll notice. But Pamela Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees' mother, the original killer in the first movie, if you haven't seen it. Like, if you watch Friday the 13th 1 expecting Jason, no, it's Pamela Voorhees going up against Jigsaw, who had like 10 movies 10 years in a row, something like that. I don't think it was quite that many. The Saw movies I actually watched regularly in the theater for like the first 4 or 5, and I really liked them. First Saw movie was like amazing for what it did. Low budget, and just Carrie Elwes is in it, and that's always good. Such a good movie for just coming out of nowhere. Syl from Species, or the hot chick from Species, Natasha Henstridge, she was known for this movie. This movie did so poorly on this poll, like 3%, and I thought more people knew it, but like I was a teenage boy in the 90s when it came out, so I guess I knew all about that. I even remember when she did a guest spot on South Park, she was credited simply as the hot chick from Species. And then I originally had on this list The Entity from It Follows, a movie which I also haven't seen, but I've been meaning to. But somebody in one of the comments earlier was like, the tire from Rubber better be on this list, so I put the tire from Rubber on the list. And it did 15%. Jigsaw took it with 68. And then, of course, had to follow up Pamela Voorhees with Jason Voorhees, you know? Once again, Jason Voorhees. Like, going into this, I picked Jason Voorhees to come out on top of the poll. I picked Jason to be the biggest horror icon there is, and we'll see what happens. He went up against Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night, who got another 1%. There's a lot of 1%ers here. Also, The Crawlers from The Descent got a 1%. The Descent is a creepy-ass movie, but it's really good. But The Crawlers aren't that iconic. And then something else that the way it lined up, they fell in here, The Thing. From The Thing? If you've not seen The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, watch The Thing. It is probably the best movie. It's a really good movie. It's a Halloween horror movie, must watch. It's not something I watch a lot. I've seen it once or twice and it sticks with me, and I think about it often, but I don't want to watch it again because I'm easily creeped out. Like, it's not a super gross gore fest. There are just images in there I don't like, but I also like. It's such a good movie. The Thing needs to be watched, and The Thing deserved better than 10%, but it was up against Jason Voorhees, and I'm doing the math now, and 87 plus 10 plus 1 plus 1 is 99. So I guess there's a 1% margin of error. Another one that caught me off guard, I was kind of writing up the second round already before I had finished these, making predictions on what was going in there, and I wrote in there The Leprechaun advancing to the second round. Spoiler alert for the next 10 seconds, the Leprechaun did not. The Deadites from The Evil Dead, which people were very vocal about in the comments, saying they are so iconic, they did 14% to Leprechaun's 24%. Bill Goldberg as Santa Claus in a movie called Santa's Sleigh, which I have not seen, but it was filmed locally, and I just know that Bill Goldberg played Santa in a horror movie. I believe the conceit is that Santa lost a bet or was cursed and had to be nice to children at Christmas for 1,000 years, and now that 1,000 years is up and he's being naughty. Seems like such a good idea for a movie. I should watch it. But they all lost to the Wolfman. Lon Chaney Jr., is that correct? Or was he the Phantom, or was he both? But another one of those classics. And like I said, once again, this is representing Wolfmen everywhere. Again, like Leatherface, like Pinhead, I thought the Leprechaun was a shoo-in, but no. Then we had Carrie taking on the Reanimator, going against the Death Angels from A Quiet Place, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's another one of those movies that I've seen once as a child, and it sticks with me. And if you haven't seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space, may I suggest adding that into your rotation this Halloween. It is, you won't forget it. They did a respectable 21%. Now, I throw respectable out there randomly. I say, it's a respectable 19%. 21% is actually pretty respectable for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Death Angels did 8, the Reanimator did 7, and Carrie, 64. She's there in the red dress covered in the pig's blood like that. When you're talking horror icons, if you're including Carrie into the mix and Stephen King, yeah, that is an iconic image. Remakes aside. Now up at the top, I mentioned that not everybody was from a movie, so this is where I put Freddy Fazbear in there. Movie upcoming, I do believe, if it's not already out. Nicolas Cage as well? Or no, he was in Willy's Wonderland. There's a Five Nights at Freddy's movie in the work. Phantom of the Opera, 9% to Freddy Fazbear's 11%. So if it's just the two of them, I guess Freddy would have won. The Wishmaster did 2%. But the Xenomorph from Alien, again, falling more into that sci-fi action side. But if you watch the first Alien movie, it's space horror. Like, it is horror. There's no avoiding that. Alien, much more so than Predator, deserves to be in a horror list. Something else that garnered a lot of respect in the comments was Count Orlok from Nosferatu. It's one of the earliest vampire movies. Max Schreck. They made a whole movie about it with Willem Dafoe and I believe John Malkovich. It was actually a really good movie. I wish I could remember what that was called. I'll look it up and it'll be here. That's a movie worth checking out. I've not seen the original Nosferatu, but this guy, Max Schreck, was the actor, and like people maybe thought he was actually a vampire. Like, he's Count Orlok playing this vampire, a pre-Dracula vampire. The novel was out, but none of the movies had been, I don't think. I don't know all the history, so I should just shut up. But he took on The Bride of Chucky, The Mummy, so there's two classics in there, I guess, and then Ghostface from Scream. What's your favorite scary movie, Sydney? Ghostface obviously moved on with 67%. And then from there, the first round was done, and I kind of set everything up, and I brought it into a more modern side, which I say modern, I guess would be 80s and on, and a more classic side. So it's kind of, we're going to have all the classics go up against each other. We're going to have the modern guys battle it out, and we're going to see who comes to the end. So right off the bat, Jason went up against Annabelle, and I used a picture of Jason X in this poll and said, voting for Jason, you're voting for Jason X. And people were like, what's wrong with Jason X? And I was like, nothing in theory. But he absolutely destroyed Annabelle with 97% to 3. So I mean, Jason, still full of momentum, just plowing right ahead. Frankenstein's Monster going up against Carrie. Carrie did well to make it to this point, but Carrie could not go on. Frankenstein's Monster just beat her 88% to 12. Not as big of a whooping, but a pretty good one. Norman Bates popped back up again, went up against the Wolfman, and that one was a lot closer than I would have thought. 66% to 34, which I think was roughly the same as Green Goblin versus J. Jonah Jameson in my Spider-Man poll. You could check out that video. But yeah, Wolfman continues on. And then Michael Myers, strong favorite as far as the comments concerned. People are certain from the beginning Michael Myers is going to win this. And he did 91% to Jigsaw's 9%, so not as impressive as Jason, my personal pick to win. Alien versus Predator, obviously, I was putting these two against each other in this round. Like, why not? Also because, you know, kind of they weren't as horror-centric, so I kind of wanted to shuffle them off. You know, I don't want to finagle it so they win. Same reason when I do an X-Men poll coming up, I'm not going to put Deadpool in there at all, because I just don't want Deadpool to overshadow everything, because it's going to be who is the greatest Avenger, who is the greatest X-Man, and while Deadpool might be a more favorite character for some people, he's not really an X-Man or an Avenger. More so an X-Men than an Avenger. Anyway, Alien went 74 to 26 over the Predator, and a lot of people were commenting, and they're like, I do like Predator better, but honestly, like, Alien is more of a horror icon when you're talking about icons. And that's actually, I want a big shout out to everybody that did vote in these. Like, I had over 2,000 votes on some of these, and everybody really understood the assignment. They were talking about the horror icons of it. They weren't like, oh, I like, you know, Frankenstein, he's cool. Like, no, as far as a horror icon. So people understood what the vote was about, and I really appreciate that, so thank you. Candyman went up against Chucky next, and Chucky took the Candyman, and I guess I could see that coming. Candyman's always kind of been that level lower than everybody else, and Chucky's up there. It's Freddy, Jason, Chucky, right? Maybe. But Chucky's got the TV series going. Chucky's had more recent movies. Like, Chucky's still going. He had a reboot with Mark Hamill, did he not? So Chucky took him 83% to 17. And this next one was Freddy Krueger versus Ghostface. I said no matter who moves on, Wes Craven wins. Ghostface was created by Wes Craven, as well as Freddy Krueger was created by Wes Craven. So obviously no question there, like Freddy Krueger took 80% over Ghostface's 18. Back over on the classic side, we had Hannibal Lecter going up against Dracula, the blood sucker versus the flesh eater. Dracula, as far as horror and everything, just more iconic, and he went over Hannibal Lecter with an 82 to an 18. So that takes us to the next round, which had the Xenomorph, the alien, going up against Dracula. Dracula took it 84% to 16% for the alien, and somebody in the comments, I'm calling you out, I'm not going to call you out by name, but somebody in the comments was like, proposed the idea of a Xenomorph vampire hybrid, and I was like, oh yeah, like a facehugger hits a vampire and pops out, like what's coming out of that? What's the alien going to be like? And they were like, oh, maybe like vampires suck on Xenomorph blood and really like the taste of it, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, their blood's acid, like a vampire is going to lose half his face sucking on a Xenomorph, so... Freddy Krueger absolutely destroyed Chucky in the quarterfinals, 90% to 10%. And I mean, here, it's pretty cut and dry. Like, once you get to this level, there are 4 big ones, you know? I made my prediction of the 4. It was going to be Freddy, Jason, Dracula, Frankenstein. And it's pretty cut and dry. And till this next one, not as much of a blowout, but it is Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers. Now, Michael Myers, you know, everyone's adamant Michael Myers is going all the way. Michael Myers is the original slasher. Michael Myers is the most iconic. No. Not as far as my viewers go. With 1.7 thousand votes, 75% picked Jason Voorhees over Michael Myers. That's about how I thought it would go. I thought Jason would beat Michael Myers. 90% to 10% for Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. Sorry, Wolfman, you're out. Michael J. Fox aside, you're not that iconic. So damn iconic, but just Frankenstein. That brings us to the final 4. Freddy Krueger, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and Jason Voorhees. I changed tradition a little bit here. Well, tradition, I've had one poll so far. I just took the final 4 and put them in one vote to see who would win, so I can have a clear number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. Without further ado, the 4th most iconic movie horror icon is... Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger took 8% of the vote. I mean, don't get me wrong, if Freddy Krueger made it all the way here, Freddy Krueger is without a doubt very iconic. I'm surprised by him placing 4th, honestly, the more I stop and think about it. But yeah, he is number 4. Number 3 was Frankenstein's creature, Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein, whatever you want to call him. He's not Frankenstein. Frankenstein's the doctor. Once again, like, you got crunch berries, you got everything. Frankenstein is undoubtedly iconic. You know, he's part of the Monster Squad. He's in the public domain. People can use Frankenstein. Aaron Eckhart played him in a movie. It was bad. Robert De Niro played him. Like, Frankenstein is iconic. So now that leaves us with Jason Voorhees and Dracula. And Jason Voorhees had 17%. Jason Voorhees is 3rd place. I guess when you take into account the modern-ish slashers, Jason Voorhees is the most iconic of them. Like, you get the hockey mask and... or whatever. Whatever, I know what it is. You know, Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason is iconic. That hockey mask is iconic. And it was built over movies. Like I said, the first movie was Pamela Voorhees. The second movie, he had a sack over his head. The third movie, he got the hockey mask. But the hockey mask and the machete, and like, it wasn't even always Jason Voorhees. Wasn't it not Tommy Jarvis for some of the movies? But like, Jason Voorhees is iconic as Freddy Krueger. It just didn't pull it out. And 63% of the vote. 63% of the vote. Dracula. And that blew me away to just think about how iconic Dracula is. But the more I think about it, like, yeah, like, there's a Dracula movie just came out, The Voyage of the Demeter. Dracula's constantly in plays. Dracula is in cartoons. Like, we have a Count on Sesame Street, you know, we have Count Chocula, you have Adam Sandler. Dracula musical from Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like, Dracula has seeped in, but then even into comic books, like Tomb of Dracula was a big series for Marvel in the 70s. It's where Blade first appeared. DC Comics has a Dracula. Marvel has a Dracula. Like, Dracula is in the public domain. Anybody can write a story about Dracula, but Dracula has just seeped into everything. My mom might not know who Jason Voorhees is. I'm sure she would, but like, if I talked to my mom about Dracula, my wife's grandmother, I could talk to her about Dracula. She'd be like, oh, get the garlic, you know, steak through the hot. Like, everybody knows Dracula. You say Dracula, people know. You say vampire, like, people know. He's transcended pop culture, honestly. Jason Voorhees sticks to pop culture. He's in comic books, he's in movies. Probably use him in commercials or something somewhere, but like, Dracula's in everything. Dracula's eating Reese's peanut butter cup. I remember specifically when they're like, there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. And
I like to eat the peanut butter first.
so there you have it. You came here to find out who was the most iconic horror icon in history from a small sampling of under 2,000 people that watch my channel. 2,000 people vote, not 2,000 people watch the videos. If we could change that, that'd be wonderful. But either way, from a small sampling, Dracula. I mean, Castlevania. He's the main boss in every single Castlevania game. Frankenstein's creature's like, what, the level 2 boss sometimes. Jason and Freddy aren't even in those games. So if we're just going strictly Castlevania... Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent. Dracula is the most iconic horror icon, and over the course of the month and this video, I haven't thought of a better way to say that. Who's the bigger horror icon? Anyway, Dracula. I've been Hossman. Haven't said my name once. Subscribe to this channel. If you do enjoy these polls, at the same time, we're running an Invincible poll. It should be over by the time this airs, so I can have that video going. But anyway, I've been Hossman. Subscribe to my channel. Share this video around. Let me know in the comments below how wrong my viewers got it in these votes. Let me know why Michael Myers should have won the whole thing. And let me know if you think Dracula's irrelevant. But I will see you in the next video.